Hello everyone, Dino Don here with the next update on my 83 Mustang Restoration project. I was going to try and get a video up here this past Sunday, but I kind of got heavy into this thing, and by the time I got done at the end of the day, I was just too tired to come back out and shoot a quick video. So I really wanted to get some things tore apart so you have something to see. Last time I mentioned I was going to possibly looking at removing the cowl. Well, there's the cowling. It's basically a box assembly. Got a top piece, bottom piece, and those couple little side pieces sticking out. And then while I got it out, I found that there was quite a bit of rust damage up underneath, and that's probably why the floor had rotted out, because of the water coming through the cowling back underneath. There's porous holes in there from the rust. So the top is really good shape, but the bottom cavity is the problem. As you can see, this is just all rust, and I wasn't happy with it. So my donor car actually had much better looking parts, so I went out and cut the whole front end off of that thing. Alright, so this is where we're at now. Once I got the cowling off and out, looking at the condition of the firewall was rotted right up here on the top corners on both sides. One side was more so than the other. There's the damage on the floor panel. I got this side panel been out of place, but I ended up peeling this one, and I had it on there, and I was going to pull this, and I was like, nah, it's too much work. So I'm just going to take and cut a good section out of this and patch that, and then I'll have to do the same thing with the floor here, kind of patch up. This had to bend in order to get this all out, but I had to go through and drill all the spot welds and everything. As you can see, that's the only thing left on the whole front end, is that left inner apron assembly. That's nothing really wrong with that. So I'm just going to clean it up best I can. I had to take off these pieces that were out here, which are those two guys there, because up underneath there's another piece here that was rusted really bad back here. Everything in this back corner was really trashed. The only real problem I see with this one is this here. There is a doubler on the inside of this, a thicker steel piece. So what I'm probably going to do is take a hole saw and kind of cut that out so I can clean it, and then I'll cut a patch and weld that in there. But for the most part, it's in good shape. Again, here's the damage down here for my reasoning for wanting to replace this part. But I decided I'm going to go ahead and save me a little work, because it was a real nightmare getting that off of the other car. Okay. I've got a whole pile of material outside, but that's what it looks like. Not much of a car. But so to save some work, instead of pulling all the cowling apart, I just went outside, and it was surprisingly easy to take a Sawzall, and I started back here past the door hinge point and just sawed it clean up right straight across the hump and over here. And it was like less than 5 minutes, and because the car had a T-top and the roof was already out, the front end lid just fell right off the car. I'd pulled the whole front K-member suspension out of the car before doing so. But as you can see, these are the front frame assemblies. They're in great shape, nice and clean. This one, of course, had quite a bit of rust on it, but it all cleaned up. And this is a heavier gauge metal. It's probably at least 16 gauge or thicker, but it's all in good shape, just some rust there. So I'll cut these out and get these patched up next. So I kind of went through and ground off all the spot weld drills and such to clean it all up. All this stuff will be cleaned. I got some different kinds of acid. I got muriatic acid, I've got phosphoric acid, and I'll go through and I'll basically brush this whole thing down with acid and try to pre-clean as much as I can and save on sanding. The floor over here is in really good shape, just some rusty looking spots, but it's solid. This is basically the only part that was bad, was some rust under this area here, and then the floor right here on this one was rotted out there. So this is what I got. I ended up, like I said, cut that whole front end off. It had the whole windshield bow all the way around it. And like I said, this side here I'd left the panel on, but I figured I'm not going to try, so I tore it off. But to save from doing all the work, I just left it all together. There's no reason to take it apart. The only really bad thing about this one is these things rusted. There's a rubber boot that goes down in here for the hinge, and this one was really rusted bad compared to the blue car. I'll probably end up cutting this out somehow. There's a doubler in the back side that holds these little tabs in so you can bolt the hinges in. That's the pivot point. But as I just hit it with a wire wheel, it just poked right through, just hitting it with a wire wheel. So that's the worst of the rust in there. You see these pieces here are in good shape. Like I said, the other ones were rotted out down in there, and basically they were rusted out right here. And these are all nice solid. So that's what I've got. You can see all the holes that I had to drill to get it out past the frame rails. Start here, go down. This is where the apron attaches. As you can see, I left that apron on there because that's the one I need. That, as you can see, the other one, this corner was all rusted out, and this one is heavily rusted too, but it's still a lot of good material there. I kind of went over it with the wire wheel on 4.5-inch angle grinder to clean all this off. So, and as you can see, the inside, the bottom edge of this is rusty, but it's not corroded through at all. It's just really, it's not really heavy scale even. The bolt compression bushings in there are fine. So this will all clean this out with some acid and such to get that, and then it'll all get pre-painted. And this is the one where I'm going to have to make the new frame rail for it. So I got to get some, measure this thing all up. It's what, 3 to 4 inches tall, a little over 2 inches wide, and it's probably close to 4 foot long, but it's just pretty much a straight rectangular box. And then there's a reinforcement in the, like I showed on the other one, that's kind of rusted through from the outside. Again, this is just all surface rust, and the phosphoric acid will clean that right off. But this one's in much better shape. There is one small rust hole started here. That was kind of tore out from trying to get it apart. So just a couple little patches on this, but for the most part it's in really good, clean shape. Clean as in not rusted out. It's literally filthy and all needs really, really clean before I can put it on. So my next step is to get this thing prepped and ready to go back in the car. I'm going to have to go through and weld some of these holes shut, because some parts I had to weld from one side, the other parts were welded, not welded, but drilled from one side to the other. And I started using just a drill and went straight through a bunch of them, like where this stuff I was throwing away. But between the parts from the blue car and these parts, some of the parts are going to have holes on both sides, and of course they're not going to line up with each other. So I'm going to have to look at it, and I'll go through and I'll weld up some holes on the ones where I don't need it, and then when it's put together, the holes will be welded through from the other side. These ones here, these will be used for welding it back onto the frame, because those I didn't drill all the way through the frame rails with it. So they'll all get welded once this is inside. And this is one of those spots I was able to drill through and stop from going all the way through in most of these. This still needs finished, cleaned up. But I went through and I straightened up all the lips on everything, got it ready. So now it just needs a good cleaning, and next phase of this process is to start patching up some of these little rusted out holes. I'll get that corner patched with that patch panel there. Get some, I've got that whole firewall and such. I can probably use some of the sheet metal to patch up this. If not, I might have a little bit of sheet metal left over for something else, but small patches. And just finish cleaning up some of this rust. The surprising thing about this project, when I took it apart after drilling out the welds and popping it apart, Ford actually had seam seal between the panels, and then they were welded through with the spot welders. But instead of just having the seam seal, like in the corners around here, it's actually between the panels before they put it. As they put it together, they seam sealed it and then welded it. So I don't know if I'll go to that extent, because I'm going to be using TIG welder for welding, and it's more like a oxyacetylene torch when it's welding. So parts tend to get a little hotter than a spot weld's quick. I thought about going to Harbor Freight. They got a spot welder for like $150, $60. that they said can handle up to 3/16 of an inch of material. Would be more than enough. It's just a matter of having access, for welding these things. But in order to use that, I'd literally have to weld all these holes shut. And then some of these, but we'll see. First thing first, I'll have to patch up some of the holes. As you can see, I got, of course, the windshield was the first thing to come out. And turned out this thing had the original, what you call the butyl rope or butyl tape. There's a round black kind of a tar substance, comes in a roll with paper. It comes like a pancake roll, but it just lays on there. It's probably 3/8 to maybe 3/8 inch in diameter, and it rolls all in there and the windshield goes on. Well, because they had apparently had problem with water getting in the car because of the rust out, they went and used urethane, late model urethane sealant, and went all the way around the windshield with it. All these little clips in here that holds the trim on, they were all just filled with urethane, and it was really, really hardened up. And I was trying to use an oscillating saw to cut through there, but the clips were in the way. So as I went around, pulled out all the clips, got all over this side and started pulling on this one to dig it out of that rubber so I can get the saw in there, run along the edge, because you couldn't tell where the edge of the glass was. And prying on this one, it cracked the window. So window was junk after that. So I ripped the rest of them out, and then I was able to go around it, cut it, go on the inside. The saw worked flawless for cutting it out. It's just that I broke it before I even got to use a saw. So it would have been nice to save it, but my biggest fear was can you even get glass for these things anymore? Well, turns out over in Painesville, Ohio, which is an hour's drive from here towards Cleveland, they actually have one in stock. So I got an appointment set up Saturday to go pick that up. So I'll get that home, throw it in the spare bedroom with the rest of the parts. So it'll be ready to go when I need it. But the main thing is get some of these patchwork in, clean up some more of the holes, weld some of the stuff up, close everything off, and more cleaning and priming before I slap anything together. This up in here was really packed heavy with seam seal. So that's right where the box was, and that's where all the rotting out was. There is a place for when rain gets into the cowling by the windshield wipers, it comes down and runs out through here. So I have to pay attention when I close that up. So that's the update for now. Probably try to do another one next weekend. Like I say, I need to get the material to make this piece for the passenger side. So I'll just use the old one, which I still have here on the floor. There is, like I said, there is a piece in the end that I have to take out for the bumper that attaches to it, but that's basically what I need to replicate. I'll remove that bracket, clean it up, and reuse it for the sway bar, and then put that all back together. This panel that was in here was rotted out. This panel here was rusted out on the passenger side. And now that I've got the my spare part here, that panel is in excellent condition. So that was one of the panels I needed to replace. It was rusted out up in there. So this one's all nice and solid. So that's nice and firm. Then the rest of this, the piece for this is going to be taken off of the old one. That's pretty much the only piece that was still good on this left apron assembly. So that piece right there, this whole section right here, I'll remove that and reuse that. This I don't need any of this stuff. I just need from here back. This will come off. This will come off. And the rest of that goes to the scrap yard. So got tons of scrap now. Luckily, there's a local guy around here that does scrap hauling. But before I do that, it's kind of rainy and windy. Actually, I got a big pile of scrap right there that I've used from both cars. So, okay, folks, that's going to do her for this week's update. I'll keep plugging away at this. Today's Wednesday. Tomorrow's Thanksgiving. Wish everybody a happy Thanksgiving tomorrow. Everybody stay safe, as always. And until next weekend, hopefully I'll have something more done and have things pretty ready to start throwing back together. Once the firewall's back in, the apron's in, everything's welded down, get the apron on, make the new piece, get the new cowl, radiator course port in, and be ready to go on the rotisserie. And then I'll strip out the rest of the interior, yank the rear suspension out, pull all the brake lines, fuel lines, throw everything away, and we'll get to town. So, all right, folks, as always, appreciate everyone taking their time to watch my videos. As always, feel free to leave any comments, questions, or concerns. This project was a little deeper than I wanted to go, but I was like, what the hell, might as well do it right. So, okay, folks, feel free to leave any comments, questions, or concerns, and I'll answer them as they come through. Again, thanks for taking your time to watch my videos. For this week, update, this is Dino Don out.